Good. All right, my name's Kevin. I am the broker of the office. I've been with Keller Williams and in real estate since 2016. I um, I started out on a team with a person named Dana Murray, who's a fantastic real estate agent. I was on the team for about a year, and then I was asked by Jim, who was our previous broker, if I would be the productivity coach. And then I was asked by John, who is our former owner, to if I would be the TL. So I was TL for a while. And I stepped out of that. I went and did some coaching for a little bit, went and sold real estate myself for a little bit, and continued to do that. And then as well as being the broker. So I think one of the reasons I'm the broker is because I'm approachable. And I think that I'm pretty good at finding solutions to things and kind of bringing down the energy that sometimes gets in with things. So here's my disclaimer. It's always better to catch issues on the front end than on the back end. So if you have questions like, hey, I'm writing this and it seems, I just want to make sure that it's right or whatever, send it to me. I'll look at it and all that kind of stuff. And we'll make sure that it's right and that it's good to go. And there are a lot of, I am not the compliance broker. The person, when you put in the contract, Matt Brady, who's a compliance broker here in Edina, looks at all the documents. So oh yes, and Lydia, to make sure everything's
a lot of stuff.
To make sure everything's there. Yeah, Lydia knows a lot about the forms because she sees them all the time. So feel free to go, hey, what else might I need? Today we're going to talk about working with buyers and what we need to do in working with buyers. So there are really three forms that are important on the front end of working with a buyer. The first one is an agency relationship disclosure. And an agency relationship by the Department of Commerce is not something you have to have signed in order, but by our office, it is something you have to have signed. But it is something that you have to share. So if someone says you shared it with them because they're not your client yet, but you're meeting them for the first time or whatever, you have to show the document. And they said, I'm not going to sign anything. That's okay. I just want to make sure that you saw it. Then right on there, hey, they didn't sign it. Oftentimes, if they're signing other stuff to where they're going to be your client, then they'll sign that, no problem. So that's one of the documents that we'll look through. Another document that we'll look through is another disclosure. It is a KW disclosure. It's what we have to disclose as a company. And one of the big takeaways on that is that you always want to disclose the compensation on that disclosure, what it costs to work with you and how you're getting paid is a piece of that disclosure. The other piece that's pretty important on that disclosure is that you are a realtor and you're not an expert in any other areas in real estate outside of that. So you're not an inspector, you're not a real estate attorney, you're not any of that stuff. And we'll look at all these forms really close as we go. So all of those things. And then the third is the one that puts your a customer to becoming a client so that you are working with them, and that is a buyer rep agreement. And those are the three that you want to have during your buyer consultations when you first meet a client on the front end, which if you do attend the next class, we'll have some how to do a buyer's consultation and make sure that you are doing that. But when I would do a buyer's consultation, I would meet everyone, but the buyer rep contract is something that you should be able to turn upside down and work through it without needing to read it. I often say to people when I get questions, well, what does the contract say? And sometimes the right answer is just read the contract. And recognize that you're getting into a contract for big dollars. And if you don't do a buyer's contract, especially a buyer's contract, you might forsake some of those big dollars. So, yeah. All right. Sound good? You two are already logged into the MLS. Online, are you on the MLS?
Yes.
Yes. Thanks, David. The others, are you on the MLS?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. There's a saying, I don't know if Gary said it, Gary Keller said it, or someone else. A class without implementation is simply entertainment. And so today is not about entertainment, because if it was, we'd get someone different up here. But I hope it's fun, but I hope we walk away learning a bunch as well. Lydia, you probably can't share the screen since we're not doing it back there, huh?
It looks like we lost you. Oh, here we go.
Am I back? And we can't really zoom in on the screen.
Yes, I can zoom in on the screen.
Oh, can you zoom on the screen? Oh, you're so great. Man, the people power in this office is pretty impressive for this class. Got Lydia, got Candy. That's awesome. Another thing that you might want to do, everyone's on this spot, right? Are you guys familiar with MLS? Pretty familiar with MLS? Online, are you pretty familiar with the MLS? Yes. Okay, good. All right. So today we're going to start in tools, and all these things are transaction desk, Minnesota Realtors forms. You can click on that one. And it should look something like this. Does everyone see something like this? Yeah. So there's a couple different things that you can do. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to start by looking at the forms exclusively, one by one. If we do that, then what we want to do is we want to go over and just hit that button right there that says forms. In the future, you can use a template that's already set up for you. Like you would click create a transaction. If you did that, this window would pop up there, and you could select your own. You could choose a template. Those templates are really helpful, setting up so they're all the same. I don't use a specific one, except you can see Kevin's buyer rep down there. But Profile is a company that does transaction management in our office. I really like them. I'm kind of a control freak in fluidity, so I don't always use them. But like I paid in advance because I know I should use them. They're that good of a spot. And one of the owners was the transaction person that was on our team. So they do a very, very good job. And so what I do, even though I don't use them, is I just click.
Oh, are you going to go in there just because there's a lot of extra stuff?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to go into.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just click on buyer rep. Does everyone see this screen? We'll just walk through this together. Is that better for the camera if I turn it like
Yeah,
that?
that is.
So on that one, yeah, so I'll go back to it. You go to, what was that? You go to create a transactions. You click on that. You can say fund class, whatever you want to call it. What's the name of the one? Are you finding it? Not finding it?
No, ours just doesn't look quite. I've never been on this part, so it's just like empty. You know what I mean? So if I go, so this is my agent dashboard.
Okay.
If I go to forms.
Oh, don't go to forms.
Okay.
Go to, go home.
Oh.
There you go.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yours is same. There you go, add on that side. My bar looks a little different, sorry.
No.
All right, now you guys see this thing? Fun class template. Today we're doing buyers. Do you have different templates in there? Do you see the profile buyer rep? You can click on that. And as you go, for buyer rep, these are not super helpful to add imported data. Not important, but imported. But when you go and you like write a listing, if you would click on, instead of the buyer view, you would click on offer template. So now you can go in there and you can select the MLS number and it populates all that information in there for you. So what a template does in the MLS is it pre-populates all your stuff that continually shows up. On the buyer docs, it's not super helpful. It kind of can be, but it's not super helpful. And but it is very, very, very helpful as you're writing PAs and different things. I am a huge fan, and this is where Profile and I are a little different. I'm a huge fan of have people sign paperwork when you meet with them and just get it done. So on my buyer reps and my listing contract, I will have them pre-populate and then I'll just sign when we're there, right? One of the things I don't do on a listing contract is put the rate in there because how much they pay is negotiable and how much they sell for is negotiable and or list at the price they list at. So there's some things on the front end that I don't like to pre-populate as much. But if you put stuff in here that on the buy side, it can be helpful to have some of that stuff already written in. So, all right. So we're gonna go back to the buyer rep. Online, you with me? All right.
Yep.
I'm with you.
All right. Get ready on the next spot. So we're gonna create, I don't need any of this. All right. And then add me as the buyer's agent. That's fine. Now we're gonna use this wizard. And this is another weird thing on templates. Templates for buyer reps is there's a lot of stuff in here you don't put in. You don't know any of that stuff. So you just go next. And then you can see the documents that, next. Are you guys clicking next along with me? Do you see yourself in there as a contact? Perfect. And then you should have do you see Keller Williams in there as a contact? Perfect. All right, you go on the next. And these are the forms that are on there. Today I said we're going to talk about 3 of them. The first one there is agency relationships. All transactions, whether it's a listing or a buyer, whenever you talk to someone, your first substantive conversation with them about real estate, you have to present this form. If you're doing an open house, which is, by the way, a great way to gain business, whether you're in business or not, it's very good. Sometimes, though, people that have, in their opinions, enough business will not do open houses because it takes away their weekend, which gives a lot of opportunities for people coming in. And it's a great way to have a face-to-face conversation. And that's what you want to do is have as many face-to-face real estate conversations as possible, and then your business grows. So the first one is agency relationships. The next one is the buyer rep contract. And it's the one that says exclusive. And that just means that, hey, you're working with me and not someone else and no one else. Then there's the disclosure statement about compensation disclosure. Compensation disclosure, it's on this first page, but you submit it to your client with each offer that you submit. So if I'm writing an offer on ABC 3rd Street and they're paying me a commission of 2.7%, and then I have a buyer's agent or a broker admin fee of something, then that compensation would show, hey, this is what it is on this house. On the next house on ABC 4th Street, it might be they're paying me 1%. The buyer now is going to pay the difference and this. The idea that it's free to work with a agent if you're a buyer is not true. It's not free, and we need to compensate how I'm getting paid. Sometimes I'm not free. Sometimes the buy side agent pays, or the listing agent pays. So we got to be clear about that. The next one on there, oh boy, is the KWP disclosures. It's because my laptop's not moving. That's why I said it. The KWP disclosures, and those are the other disclosures that we talked about. And then there is an amendment or a changing of that agreement. Oftentimes you won't need that. There's the facilitators agreement. My recommendation to you would be that you use that rarely. And remember that you cannot represent one side and be a facilitator for the other side. So you can do dual agency, or you can do, but you can't. I mean, you can be for one and not facilitate the other side, but you cannot be a facilitator and an agent for them. And a fiduciary for the other. And then the amendment to the listing contract by a representation contract. That's another amendment that you probably won't need. If you're at a spot where you need to amend your purchase agreement, your representation, oftentimes it's good just to, hey, I want to sign up with you again and have some of those conversations that we need to have again. So, all right, sound good? All right, let's go back to forms and we'll work through these. Everyone see how I got there? Back to forms. All right. The first form that we're going to look at is agency. Do you see that search bar? Everyone have a search bar up in the top right? In there, type agency. All right. And then you see the agency relationships in real estate transactions. Click on that one. And that's this form here. Now, if you want to know what the form says, what would be my recommendation? You yes, that is the answer. It was a snarky question, so a snarky answer is okay. Yes. What does it say in this contract? Well, read it, and it says exactly what it says. Minnesota law requires that early in any relationship, real estate brokers or salespersons discuss with the consumer what type of agency, representation, or relationship they desire, right? So here's the deal. There are various types of relationships in real estate. I'm disclosing to you what they are. This is an agency disclosure form only. If you desire representation, you must enter into a written contract according to state law. Hey, this is not a contract. I'm just telling you the different options, right? Until such time as you choose to enter into written representation, you will be treated as a customer and will not receive any representation from the broker or salesperson. The broker or salesperson will be acting as a facilitator, paragraph C that, unless the broker or salesperson is representing another party as described below. Okay? We acknowledge that we have been presented. All they're signing is they're going, hey, I've been presented with this information, and that's what that is. It's not a contract, doesn't put you in a relationship, it doesn't do any of that, but it tells you about the types of relationship. The first one is a seller's broker, or sometimes we call this person what? The listing agent. That's right. And the seller's broker is a broker or an agent, right? Who, remember, all things are listed with the broker. and then sales agents act as the agent of the broker. Which is a weird thing because that's like the law, and then everyone has their own business and everything. A broker who lists the property or a salesperson who is licensed to a listing broker represents the seller and acts on behalf of the seller. So if you're a listing agent, whose behalf or best interests are you looking out for? You're the listing agent. Seller, are you looking for the best on the buy side? No. Doesn't mean that you have to harm the other side, but it does mean that just because something's convenient for the buyer doesn't mean your seller should agree to it, right? You don't represent them. You represent the best interest. After I read when I'm sitting with someone, I always go to the fiduciary. So what does it mean to be a fiduciary? So here we go. Seller's broker represents the listing, the seller. Buyer's broker does the same thing, but for the buyer. Dual agency occurs when you represent both sides, and we'll come back to those, okay? And then a facilitator is not a fiduciary, but acts to get the things to come together. They have to give confidence to both sides. They have to keep confidentiality to both sides, but they cannot act in the interest or harm of the other party, right? They're supposed to be a neutral party. All right, but as a fiduciary, you learn these in school. What are the fiduciary duties? Online, get ready because we're gonna go. Everyone has to answer one. Ready? Fiduciary of loyalty. What is that? Who wants to start?
Whoever you represent, it's their best interest. Oh, you're sorry.
It says it right there. Yeah, but yes. And what does it say?
Read it.
What does it say?
Brokers/salesperson will act only on their client's best interest.
That's right. Only on my client's best interest. Next.
Obedient. Broker, salesperson will carry out all clients' lawful instructions.
Nice. Online. Let's go. You're going to show up for class. Show up for class. Let's go.
Disclosure. Broker salesperson will disclose to clients all material facts of which broker salesperson has knowledge which might reasonably affect the client's use and enjoyment of the property.
Awesome. Next. Confidentiality, which means broker salesperson will keep clients' confidences unless required by law. So I have to disclose material facts. I'm going to keep your confidence unless required to disclose by specific information. So the things you tell me, hey, I want to sell it for 500, but I'd really take 450. I can't share that. Someone calls, an agent calls on the other side and says, well, what do you think they'd take for this house? Yeah, you can't ask me what I mean, you can ask, but I can't tell you what my clients would take, right? Unless your client, and there might be a time where your client would say, hey, if someone comes in with this offer, you know, and agents have ways of doing things, of write it up. Do you think they'll take it? I don't know. Write it up, right? There's no harm in if you write it up, I'll present it. You have to take reasonable care, which means you're a professional and you want to make sure that you act reasonably and do the things that would be expected of you. So you have to take reasonable care performing the duties as an agent. And accounting. Broker salesperson will account for clients, for all clients, money and property received as the agent, right? That's where the brokerage gets to help you as well. If the seller/landlord elects not to agree to dual agency relationship, the seller may give up the opportunity to sell and lease the property by the broker salesperson. If a buyer or/tenant elects not to agree to dual agency, buyers may give up the opportunity to purchase or lease properties listed within the broker. All right, dual agency. What separates dual agency is if your client, and on here we often ask people to agree to dual agency. And the way I explain that is we have 142 different agents in our office. And if you don't agree to dual agency, I can't show you any of their properties. I will always tell you if this is a dual agent relationship, whether it's with me or someone else in your broker or in the brokerage. That's what I always tell, because you represent both parties. Now, what does that mean? Let's go to dual agency. Dual agency occurs when one broker or sale person represents both parties in the transaction. That means anyone from our brokerage. We are our own brokerage. It doesn't mean anyone in KW. It just means anyone in KW Lake Minnetonka. Okay. When two salespersons licensed the same broker each represent a party in the transaction, dual agency requires an informed consent of all parties, which is the statement I will always tell you if we're in dual agency, right? And means that the broker and salesperson owe the same duties to the seller and buyer. This role limits the level of representation the broker and salesperson can provide and prohibits them from acting exclusively from either party. I'm the listing agent. Who's my loyalty to? The seller. I'm the buyer's agent. Who's my loyalty to? Now I'm dual agency. Where's my loyalty? It's both, right? And I cannot act in an interest that harms either one. So the role limits the level of representation the broker and salesperson can provide and prohibits them from acting exclusively for either party. In a dual agency, confidential information about price, terms, and motivation for pursuing the transaction will be kept confidential unless one party instructs the broker or salesperson in writing to disclose specific information about him or her. Other information will be shared. Dual agents may not advocate for one party to the detriment of others, right? Why would I agree to dual agency? Here's the deal. I think most things are win-win, right? And the thing that we want is you want to sell your house and that person wants to buy your house. And as a dual agent, we can make that as a transaction, right? So, and why else should you use dual agent? Because if you don't, I can't show you any of the awesome properties that we have here. All right. Within the limitations described above, dual agents owe both seller and buyer the fiduciary duties described below. As we talked about, dual agents must disclose the buyer's material facts as defined in Minnesota Statute 8268, subsection 3 of which the broker is aware. By the way, that's just in general. If they're selling a property as is, or if they have a waiver and you know of something as material fact, as a realtor, you must still disclose material. Good? Are you comfortable with this sheet? Great. Now what your job is to memorize the sheet and be able to say it backwards, upside down. It's really good. And it's good to put a narrative around it as you go through because the more confidence you show in it, it's that first disclosure. You're not asking them to sign a contract, but you will be. Good. All right, next one. The next one is KWP disclosure. You can find that in like the Keller Williams spot here. Do you guys see how I got to that? Let me go back. Keller Williams Premier Realty Lake Minnetonka. Candy. The next time we update forms, will you put the wire fraud separate from the purchase agreement?
Oh.
Because what happens when they're together is we have to send the purchase agreement to the other party, and we don't need to do it there. So, but I think it's expensive to make a change. So, next time, I think we should just make that separate. All right.
I don't think we've changed that one.
No, we haven't. Yeah, we haven't. All right. So KWP disclosure of waivers and acceptance. There they are. I think they're all the same form. They're just there multiple times. So you can click on one. One of them says, they all say broker fee. What's the broker admin fee for the office? $4.99. Nice job. $4.99. what your clients need to know is outside of what I'm getting paid on the commission, the broker is charging $499, which is assessed right onto your clients. Okay. That gets disclosed in different places. Some people increase that. I would say I understand it as someone that benefits from increasing it sometimes. I would also say, as a broker, the less and less comfortable I am with increasing that. Because in the financial world, we've seen people penalized for adding fees on top of stuff that don't make any difference. So it makes difference if all of it goes to the broker, but now you're charging the broker and you're getting some, doesn't really seem in alignment. So my suggestion would be to you is that you go with the $499 and don't make an extra $100 there, or $200 or $300. That would be my suggestion. All right. Let's go through this form. On this form, one of the things that sticks out to me is there are times, by the way, we are half an hour in. We're on track here, so this is good. There are times where you need them to initial if they're the buyer, and there are times that you need them to initial if they're the seller, and there are times that you need them to initial no matter what. All right? Wherever there are 4 boxes, that means where no matter what. It doesn't mean they have to initial twice. It just means no matter what they need to initial. Sound good? All right. So the first one is buyer's home inspection. The important piece on that is you are telling them, hey, you have an option to buy a home inspection. And we encourage you to do a home inspection. As an agent in this office, your word should always be, I encourage you to do a home inspection. You can also say, sometimes your offer won't get accepted if you do an inspection, but I always encourage you to do an inspection. Never discourage someone from doing an inspection. You can say to them, hey, there are multiple offers, and it's probably going to go to pending. Some people are probably willing to give up their right to inspection. I always encourage you to do inspection. It's totally up to you, all the time.
You recommend, like, if they decide not to do an inspection, to send them in an email, like, per your request, we are not doing.
Yeah, and make sure that it be a text or an email. As a reminder, we encourage you to do inspection, but you've decided not to do one. Yeah. Never, ever encourage someone not to do an inspection, because then that liability comes to you. But if they've done one, not so much. Yeah, I've encouraged them to do an inspection. They chose not to do it. All right, next. The next one here is how many boxes? 4. So who has to sign this one? Everyone. That's right. By the way, I oftentimes go through this form, whether I'm doing and go through all of them, whether I'm on the list side or the buy side, because if I'm listing the house, it's good to talk with that first one where the buyer's going to do an inspection. I can say to my client, most likely the buyer's going to want to do an inspection on your property. We see inspection periods anywhere from 5 to 7 days, and sometimes they were 2 to 10 days, somewhere in there, depending what kind of market you're in. And oftentimes what they're looking in that time are the unknown safety and expensive items, like that. Wow, we didn't know about this. There is a negotiation after that they might come back and ask for something. It's the same on the front end. You can say yes, no, you can say no, or you can counter during that period as well. And then I also say, oftentimes during the inspection period, during an inspection period, a buyer has the right to withdraw for any reason or no reason at all. So they might have inspected the backyard and saw something they didn't like. They can go, I don't want this house anymore. So it's not good to tell your client, hey, you can just back out, make a bunch of offers, and you can back out anytime. But really, they do have that right to back it. The next one, home warranty. Seller buyer acknowledges that the agent has informed the buyer of the availability of the cost and the cost of a home warranty plan. You know what? This is probably something we got to get out again, is the home warranties. We used to 4 years ago, 5 years ago, home warranties were part of the negotiation. And with the seller's market went really crazy, some of that kind of went away. But it's your obligation to say, here's a home warranty, and here are the prices available to you. So you don't have to sell a home warranty, but it does say right on there, it's your job to tell them home warranties are available and the pricing. So we got to be able to, I don't know that we could answer pricing very well.
You should just send them to the various websites.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's something maybe we got to do as an office. And on that one, they can say, yes, we are going to purchase a home warranty. We're not going to purchase a home warranty, or we're undecided at this time. Oftentimes you can see it's pre-populated with undecided at this time. And that's because you can use it as a negotiation spot as well. Let's say the furnace is older, it's working well. You might be able to say, you might not be able to get a new furnace, but you might be able to say, the sellers are going to now pay for a home warranty.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Construction.
Yeah.
Is
This is different. So new construction comes with a 1 and a 5 year warranty, right? This is not that. This is for a pre-existing spot. Like sometimes like gas companies, you'll see like a home warranty. That's kind of what that is. So then a final walkthrough. We recommend a final walkthrough that buyers accompanied by their agent walk through the property prior to closing to make sure that all, if any, required repairs and corrections have been completed. We recommend that all electrical, plumbing, cooling systems are in proper working order. Read the rest of it, but that's what it is, okay? We recommend that you do a final walkthrough before closing. Less than 24 hours probably before closing because you want to make sure that things are right. I had a toilet that I don't know why, but it has like a pressure thing that clients were out of the house, all was well. And then inspection, or they came for the final walkthrough and they're like, hey, there's water dripping into the basement. Well, if they had just went to closing and not done a final walkthrough, they would have came back and said there was water in the basement. My clients would have said, we never knew about water in the basement. That wasn't there. And now that problem belongs to who? The homeowners, the new homeowners, right? So do a final walkthrough, make sure things are in the order. It's good to look at windows and it's good to look at walls. Like sometimes people are just horrible when they move. It's also good to kind of go, hey, is the home swept? It doesn't have to be clean, but it does have to be swept and ready for a nice cleaning. Multiple offers occur when more than one buyer submits an offer to the property. Depending on the market, you'll see lots of multiple offers, or you might not see any. What your buyer needs to understand is that buyer hereby acknowledges that the buyer's agent may ask the sellers if there's been any offers. So I always tell my people, hey, I will always ask, have there been any other offers on the property? Your seller's agent, if offers have been submitted to this buyer's property, buyer understands the seller agent may be directed by seller to disclose, to not disclose, or not know, right? So as a buyer's agent, I'm going to ask, and I might not find out because the seller has 3 options. They can say, tell everyone. If we're in multiple offers, tell everyone. They can say, tell no one, and they can say, tell only those who ask. So for my clients, I always say, I will always ask. I will always ask, and we might not know. Okay. Next one, how many boxes? 4. So what does it mean? Everybody signs, no matter if you're a buyer or seller. And this is the one that says we are a brokerage, a real estate broker. I always add, I'm a real estate agent. I'm awesome at what I do, but I am not an expert in any of the other fields, including, without limitation, construction, inspection, accounting, tax, Appraisal, property tax, evaluation, law, environmental, all those things. What I say to them is if you ever have questions about those, I will always tell you, go check it out. You feel like you should talk to an attorney, go check it out. Feel like you need to talk to someone about taxes, go check it out. Go check it out. Residential seller disclosure, how many boxes are on those? 2. So who has to sign that? The seller. That's true. The seller has to sign it. But I always use this spot to tell my clients that when we walk into a house, we're often going to find, or I'm going to find online and send to you, a disclosure, which is filled out by the sellers, and they're going to disclose everything that they know about the property. Or I'm going to find a third-party inspection, which is going to be a report. It's going to tell us what's going on in the house, which is not, by the way, the Tisch report. That's not the same. Some places, like some municipalities, require that you do a separate truth in housing kind of report. That is not the inspection. Your clients need to understand that that's not the inspection. Or they might do a waiver. Most often you'll see a waiver in like a situation where the people haven't lived in the home. So that might be a death. That might be a rental case. That might be a variety of different reasons. All those things.
For a second.
Yes.
So when you say everyone needs to sign, you mean no matter which side you're representing?
Sorry, if you're representing the listing or the buyer, the other party doesn't sign, but your party, whether it's your listing or the buyer, sign. Yeah, so it doesn't need 4 boxes. That just clues you in that, hey.
Whichever side you're representing.
Right. Yeah. There's no, you'll never need 4 signatures on there unless you have 4 clients. It's only your client side. And then the bottom of the box here. This is important.
Maureen has a question.
Oh, who does?
Maureen.
Oh, nice. Let's have a question.
Okay, I have a question. If you are signing this at a listing appointment, is it better to advise your clients to fill out the seller's property disclosure statement on their own, or to have a third-party inspector come in and inspect their house prior to listing?
Yeah, I think it's great to disclose, have them fill it out. And the reason is because they are obligated to disclose what they know. They're not obligated to investigate and do different things on all those things. So there might be some things that they didn't know. And as long as they are not covering things up and disclose, you're okay. And remember, I tell clients all the time, disclose, disclose, disclose. Hey, we had some mice in here one time, but I think we got them all or whatever. I don't care if it's 1 mouse or 2 mice or a whole breed of them. Just disclose. Just disclose and say, hey, we had this. This is how we dealt with it. No longer seems to be an issue.
Who knows that you had mice?
You do.
And your neighbors.
Yeah,
and they're gonna find out. And
yes. And then they're gonna come down and something's gonna happen where either the mice are gone and they found like little mouse turds and they're like, or the mice aren't gone. And some people will not buy houses with rodents or pests in them. So just disclose, disclose, disclose. One that's not on there that I think should be on there is whether the house is a smoker's house or not. Sometimes you do a showing and you walk through the door and you're like, why did I even show up like this? The next one on there, number 8, customer client acknowledges that a blank broker admin fee will be charged at the successful close of their transaction. This one said blank, but it's $5.99 on here. What is the broker admin fee for the brokerage? $4.99. Is it okay to put $5.99 in there? Currently, it is okay. Do I have concerns about it? Yes, I do. Right? Questions about that form? Oh, who has to sign this form? Cheat sheet right there. Who has to sign it? Whoever your client is, in whether you're the buyer or the sellers, right? So only one side's going to get initialed, except unless you do both sides. Like you're going to do the listing too, then you can just be fun and do both sides. And you don't have to use 2 different forms. You can all use all the one form and put it in twice for Lydia, but you really don't have to. All you're doing is showing that they've had it. And then who else has to sign? The agent, yes. If you're using this form with the same clients, just make sure all the boxes are initialed, right? So they know everything that's going on there. These are, these are old now, yeah? It's still right? All right. Affiliated business relationships. We have relationships with a couple mortgage companies. You're not required to use any of them. You can use whoever you want. You can use my preferred person. You can use not my preferred person. In fact, I have a preferred person, but oftentimes if you check rates and mention you're checking rates, you get a better rate for some reason. I don't know why that happens, but we have it with New American Funding and Keller Mortgage. It says there in bold, you're not required to use any of them. We just have to tell you that we have a business relationship with them. Good. There's some costs towards those things. Who has to sign that? Your clients. All right, those are the two disclosures. Boom, we're knocking out forms. We have 10 minutes to go through the most important one. All right, which is, it's called buyer's representation. My space bar is not working. Yeah. I always call it a buyer rep. You see it on there? And you're looking for the exclusive one. Buyer representation contract exclusive. Why exclusive?
You only want to work with us.
That's right. Once we're in this relationship, I work for you and I'm done competing against someone else. I'm working for you to get what you want.
Are you looking at the 2022 forms or the Minnesota revenue?
Oh, yeah. So the nice thing is they're the same.
Oh, okay, great.
All right. So create a standalone. There you go. This form is the one that is great to know upside down. You want to put a date in there. You want to put your number of pages, but you can go at the end or you can cheat and pick down and go, okay, how many pages is it? Oh, this is where I think we should take it out. Actually, this is okay on this one. It's on a listing. It's on the PA as well. It's okay in this spot because it comes in and I need the form with this piece, so it's okay on here. So I'll put the date. You put who your buyer is. Your buyer is blank or blank and blank. The broker is Keller Williams Premier Real Estate Lake Minnetonka. Now, here's some of the things on the template that I'll tell you are helpful. This, you can leave all these blank. You can put this in. I think it's 4 pages. You can leave, but you want to leave that blank, and then this you could have it filled in on your template. So it always said Keller Williams Premier Realty Lake Minnetonka. Buyer gives broker the exclusive right to locate or assist in negotiations for purchase, exchange the option to purchase property located in Minnesota at the price and terms acceptable to the buyer. The contract starts on the day you're meeting, right? So you can put that date there and ends on, how long do you think you should put that there? Okay. 6 months. I'm a year guy as well. So I just tell people, hey, I do this for a year. We're going to find you a house way before that. But I always do these for a year. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Here's the deal you have to remember. This will come from the person that teaches the next class. All of this is in negotiation, right? We as a brokerage don't tell you you can't take something less than any time. You can do anytime. Just make sure that when your contract ends, you either sign a new contract or you stop representing that person, because now you no longer have a financial agreement. You have no longer a contract. Contract terminates upon successful closing with the property or the expiration or the cancellation of this contract, whichever occurs first. The contract may only be canceled by written mutual agreement of the parties, right? So one of you can't say, hey, I don't want to work with you anymore. I don't want to work with you anymore. For a long time, I was telling clients, if you ever want out of this, I'll let you out because I only want to work with people that want to work with me. It's still true, but I don't like throwing it out on the front end anymore. Specifically with different like new construction pieces or spot right there. I just yeah, if I ever do anything that makes you want to get out of this contract, come talk with me and we'll come to an agreement. Right? The broker's obligation, who's the broker? Keller Williams, but in this case, as you're presenting this, what's your obligation? As behalf of the broker? That'd be you, right? So your obligation, my obligation is to make a reasonable effort to locate a property acceptable to the buyer. I should use my professional knowledge and skills and assist in negotiation for the purpose of the property. All this is saying is your skill better be better than I'm just going to put you on a search, right? That could be part of it, and but it's not get them under contract and abandon them. That's not, you don't have that obligation. You have an obligation to work in their best interest. Brokers shall act in the buyer's best interest at all times, subject to any limitations imposed by the law or dual agency. Brokers shall comply with all acceptable fair housing and non-discrimination regulations. You know what there are protected classes, and they're protected classes whether that person's your client or not. I had a client that said to me, I never want to buy a house next to this people group. I'm sorry, I'm not setting you up on a search that way. It's not. And I said, if you say it again, I'll fire you as a client. So you just have to have a standard. Buyer, and then they backpedaled and they're like, well, I didn't mean that. I meant buyer's obligation, and the buyer shall work exclusively with the broker for the purchase of the property. Buyer shall promptly furnish broker accurate and relevant information regarding the financial pieces. Hey, I don't want to show you properties you're not pre-approved for. Who are you working for as a lender? Do you have cash to buy the property? Great. Now I want to see proof of funds for this. They're obligated to work with you in order to help them find the house. After the purchase agreement has been accepted by the seller, buyer is legally obligated to purchase the property. I've given you a PA, it's been accepted. You're now obligated. If buyer refuses to close on the property for any reason other than failure of seller to perform, subject to relevant contingencies, buyer shall pay broker all compensation due under this contract. Look, I showed you this house, you wrote a PA on it, and then you backed out. I did all this work. I don't care if you backed out, you still owe me compensation. That is true. And we don't see it, but that is true. That person owes you the compensation. Should have they went and bought a house while you were working with them and not told you or intentionally avoided you, that's protection for you. That's what that is. The compensation for this purchase, oh, this is a very important part. This is good in Minnesota. The compensation for this purchase, lease, rental, or management of real estate property shall be determined between each individual broker and the broker's client. What does that mean? It's negotiable. It is negotiable. And what we're going to do now is we're going to negotiate it, and then we're going to write it down. If a buyer or any other person acting on the buyer's behalf agrees to purchase the property during the term of the contract, the following compensation will apply. Buyer agrees to pay the broker retainer fee of, oftentimes we don't see a retainer fee. Go ahead.
So lots of times we see that they'll increase the broker admin fee, but do you feel like this is a better place to put that additional dollars if that's something you want to take? And then it has to be put towards something like pictures. I know a lot of people look at that for pictures.
Yeah. The challenge is at the commencement of this contract. So that means they're writing you a check at that portion, right? Who can checks be written to? The brokerage. So what do you do with those funds right away, right? They would have to come back and get in a trust account, right? So then you'd have to drop them off to Lydia and she would say, okay, where does this go? What contract is it for? Sometimes people do a retainer fee if I'm going to work with investors or I'm going to work with some clients that maybe it's drawn out longer. We intend to do some things, and there's some front end things that we know that, hey, this is there.
Do you ever, instead of trouble in here,
I know.
commencement, can you put at, like when everything's wrapped up, what would you call that,
At closing?
closing?
No, because a retainer fee is not an additional fee. It goes towards the cost at the closing, so it would be eliminating some of that. So that's the next line where it says the retainer fee shall apply toward satisfaction of any obligation to compensate the broker. So it's just a front end fee that says, hey, whether we're gonna get here. So yes. So if you feel like 2.7 or whatever that amount is not enough, the better thing to do is to write it in this spot. Buyer shall pay broker's compensation of what? Rather than adding that to your broker admin fee, you could add it to this. Interesting thought, but you could do it. You could say 3%. Hey, I charge 3%. I charge 10%. I charge 2%, whatever that amount might be in there of that money. The buyer shall pay a broker's compensation of blank percent of the selling price or whatever that amount is, whichever is greater when the buyer closes on the purchase of property. So sometimes if someone's going to buy a $100,000 property, you might say my time's worth more than that, and I want to put a $10,000 or a $8,000 amount. Whenever I take something, this is what it's going to put in there. You can put that in there. As long as it's disclosed, this is an agreement between your client and you in the brokerage. Okay. Most often at our brokerage, we've seen a lot of 2.7%. Yeah. However, it's negotiable. You can put whatever you want to put in there. Buyer, and then it goes back. Okay. If these are scenarios. If a buyer purchases or agrees to purchase a property before the expiration of the contract, even if the buyer does not use the broker's services, you're working with me exclusively. If you use someone else, you still owe me this amount, right? So that's A. Or B, within, and that number can be 180 days. And what that's saying is this is a protection again for the agent, that they're not just waiting for your contract to end so that they don't have to compensate you. Okay. It doesn't happen very often, but it does then also show that you have an obligation to present them with some properties within 72 hours after the expiration of contract. So if you show any of these properties, or if you buy any of these properties that I showed you, you still owe me compensation. Okay. Unless they work with another agent. All right. 38, brokers authorized to negotiate and receive compensation paid by the seller or broker representing or assisting the seller. That's saying, hey, if I get paid by the listing agent, it's okay. I can get paid by the listing agent. And then it says any compensation that I get paid by the listing agent or the broker representing that assisting agent shall or shall not reduce. This is where people in the past may have said it's free to work with a buyer's agent. And this is why they said, this is why. It doesn't really cost you anything because whatever they pay me is going to reduce your cost. Can't say that. But what you can say is whenever I'm being compensated, it's going to reduce the cost that you owe me. So if they're compensating 1%, I'm going to take 1% off of it. On our compensation disclosure, I'm going to fully show with you, hey, they're paying me 1%. We agreed on 3%. You're going to pay me 2%, and you're going to pay the broker admin fee. Okay. Disclosure is super important, and making sure people know how things are getting paid is a super important conversation these days. You shouldn't show a house without a compensation agreement. And the reason is because should they buy that house and you don't have this, that you don't get paid, right? They're under no obligation to pay you. Buyer understands that the buyer does not have to pay the broker's compensation if the buyer signs another valid buyer representation or facilitator service agreement after the expiration of the cancellation agreement with someone else, which the buyer is obligated to compensate another licensed party. So if they sign with a different brokerage after this expires, they no longer have to pay you. Okay. Buyer's actions in locating a property may affect payment of compensation by the seller, and therefore, especially in our exclusive, what they need to understand, and may therefore obligate the buyer to pay all or part of the compensation in cash at closing. For example, it even gives you an example. The act of going through an open house unaccompanied by a buyer's broker or licensee representing buyer, or signing the purchase agreement through another broker or with the owner, in the case of a for sale by owner, may require buyer's payment of full compensation to the buyer's broker. Hey, we want you to know this is an exclusive. When you buy a house, you owe me this money. It says it in bold. You want to put what type of property you're representing them for? If they're going to buy a commercial property, I strongly recommend that you partner with one of the commercial agents here rather than trying to represent them in that. Oftentimes, you'll be able to get a referral fee for that, which is great because then your work is done and you get paid. It's fantastic. And we got a good team here. So you guys are going to be experts in residential stuff. So whatever boxes there you check. Closing services, the real estate broker licensee representing or the real estate closing agent has not expressed and under applicable state law may not express opinions regarding legal effect of closing documents or of the closing itself. That's saying you guys are not lawyers, you're not closing experts, right? So what you want to do is they can say, hey, will you connect us with a closing person, or we'll do that on our own. That's what that is doing right there. We have a couple of good closers that are often used in our office. One of them is Great North Title, and they have an office downstairs. The other is All American Title. And the fun pieces of that is both of the key figures in there are named Melanie. So that's fun. And you'll probably see both of them around a little bit. Okay. It's really good to have a closing company you trust and communicates well with you and your clients. Additional costs. There are additional costs in buying real estate. Some of them come from lenders. Some of them come from closing costs, with title, whatever. They just need to understand their closing costs. Foreign Investment and Real Estate Property Tax Act, FIRPTA. That's on there. They need to know it. What that really means is that should someone who is not a what term do they have? That's what I look for. Foreign person. There we go. That's what I was looking. If someone is a foreign person, I was looking for exactly how they said. Meaning they're not a United States citizen. When they sell a property, taxes will be withheld from part of that that need to get paid, and from their proceeds, and ultimately someone's going to be responsible for those taxes if they don't get paid. That's what it is. Private inspection. Hey, look at that. We tell everyone we recommend you get an inspection. We're not going to tell you the companies to use. We're going to tell you a couple of companies that we've used in the past and had good stuff. And you can buy a home warranty because we're going to supply with you a home warranty stuff. Remember, dual agency. We want you to agree to dual agency so we can show you everything in the house. But here we're disclosing it again. Who has to sign this portion? Your clients and you, right? Yes, and you. This is one of the initials I think that gets, or signings that get skipped sometimes. But you have to sign this portion as well, right? And the real estate company is who? Keller Williams, Premier Realty, Lake Minnetonka, right? Other potential buyers. I work with other buyers. I may be showing them the same property. You need to know that. I also need to know that you don't have any previous relationships, agency relationships with others, as you enter into this with me. The termination of our fiduciary duties end when this contract ends, which could happen 3 ways. It could end with a closing. It could end with us mutually agreeing to go our separate ways, or with the court saying this ends it. Or an expiration. Yeah. Court can also say it's done, but predatory offenders, and this was on the other disclosure as well. I cannot steer you toward or away from any neighborhoods. It's against the ethics as a realtor and the law actually. But there is a resource here for you to check if there are any predatory offenders in the area, and this is the phone number right there. And you can also talk to them. I also can't tell you what school districts are good or bad, but a good thing to do before we look at a house is just drive through the neighborhood and see if it's a comfortable spot for where you would want to live. And there's different websites, better schools. You can look at the school districts individual sites and decide if you want to move in that area. The entire agreement is an agreement. Everything that's written on here, any other written oral communication between the buyer and the broker, including but not limited to emails, texts, or other electronic communications, are not part of this agreement, right? So this is a contract that puts me in, if we say, hey, we're out, we're not out until we cancel this agreement. Electronic signatures are fantastic. And my favorite line on this one comes on line 125. You allow me to communicate with you by fax. And any other way of doing it. On other, this is what I would encourage you to write on line 127, as I would encourage you to write, buyers agree to pay a broker admin cost, BACs, commission cost, but it's not really commission. Fee, broker admin fee, sometimes you see, of $499. And the reason we're doing that is because we're disclosing. And before, those others were not disclosures. Were not contracts. They were simply disclosures. So if they say to you, I'm not paying a broker admin fee, you never put that in your contract. They would be 100% right if you didn't put that there. All right. And then you want your clients to sign, buyer. All that information is helpful. And then wire fraud alert is on the bottom. And I just say, hey, there are things out there that you need to be aware of wire fraud. And I will never send you a text that says, hey, wire me money. Right, so if you get that, let me know. And title company will, if they ask you for wire directions, title company will always reach out to you directly. So don't get scammed. We went through a lot. Those are the 3 that are important. I think the buyer's consultation is the best thing that so many people skip. And it's fantastic. And as long as you have this conversation, then writing that compensation disclosure later is easy because you've already talked about that. So when you send a buyer's compensation later, you're just saying, hey, as we discussed at our first meeting, here's how that will show up in this one. And if you don't attach that compensation, what happens, Lydia?
You don't get paid.
You don't get paid. So it's a required form. So compensation disclosure. And that comes when? It comes with each offer you submit. Each offer you submit. It does not need to go to the listing side, so it shouldn't necessarily be included as you send your offer, but it should be included to your client for another signature.
Just add to that, I think the buyer's rep is a great way as it's like for people who are new to this, so a lot of your first clients are going to be people you know and friends, to set yourself up as like the expert. And this is a great way to be like, okay, yep, I am your friend, but now I'm also, this is my job and this is my business. And so it kind of sets the stage of like, yep, we're still friends, but now this is how I am in business. So it helps separate that and lets them know like, oh, great, yeah, I'm with a professional that you're my friend, but you're also this. So just as you would do in any business, but I think it's a great segue into that. It's a good conversation to have. So I love it.
And I always, there are two things that you can do. One is, I like that you said professional, right? So I'm setting this up as a professional relationship. And then you can always say, my brokerage requires, right? So, hey, we're buddies. Why do we need that? My brokerage requires that we set this up, especially early on. And then I would say, like, I knew, right, X was going to be on line 125. For me, we're going through a contract. I look at people and I want them to smile and engage in that spot. This whole time is a negotiation. We're going through a contract. It doesn't mean it's you versus me. I now get to work for you. We get to have fun in this interaction. So it's important. It's a good way to solidify your business relationship. All right. Questions? You want a homework assignment?
Yeah.
All right, here's your homework assignment. Go through this contract 3 times just yourself. And then explain it to 3 different people. Sitting across from the table. Before you do it with a potential client. Go through it 3 times yourself. And then do it with 3 different people. And if you don't know what the contract says, what should you do? Read it. And you can read it in front of a client too. Well, what does that mean? Let's read it, right? Because it answers the question right in the text. So just read it. Good. Any other questions online? All right. See you later.
Thanks, Kevin.
My pleasure. And stop by my office.